Okay, Sarah, I am ready when you are.
I'm ready too. Hello, everyone. Dan, do you want to start with your saving 10%?
Yes, I want to say a few things. Number one, thank you everyone for joining us today. This is another professional development webinar brought to you by New Readers Press. Today's topic is reading. And since it is reading, I thought I would remind everyone of our February special at New Readers Press, where we have 10% off of all reading materials. And let's see, I've got a chat in my way, so I can't read the whole thing, but there's a promotion code if you were to place an order for reading materials in February from New Readers Press, and you were to give the code FEB21, you would get 10% off of those materials. Today's presenter is Sara Gutting, and I've known Sara for a while. She's an adult educator in Indiana, and she's an adult education consultant all across the country. And I've personally attended several of her presentations and workshops where she's always very well received and where I always learn something useful and something new. So with that said, Sara, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Dan. I thought I would take myself off of video because we are on these Zooms all the time and nobody's on video. And it's like, I've missed seeing people and I miss being with people. So I thought I would say hello and introduce myself. You'll have my email and my website, just a few things on there that you can kind of take a look at, see who I am. But while we're kind of talking and introducing ourselves, I would love it if we could go to slido.com and be ready, because we're going to do a little interaction a little later in the webinar, and you'll be able to kind of plug this little code in, not like we do Kahoot, if anybody's done Kahoot. So you can plug the code in and we can make answers, but they'll show up on the screen instead of in the chat window. So for anybody who's doing Zoom adult education classes, it might be a great little tool that you can also use as well. So slido.com, and we'll remind you as we get closer to that. But you can kind of see who I am. I'm not going to read it because we are in a reading webinar, so I'm hoping everybody can read that. But the best part of my career was starting teaching at the Hamilton County Jail. It's a little county jail. It's not so little anymore, but it's a county jail north of Indianapolis, Indiana. Right north, it's in Noblesville, Indiana, Hamilton County, and I have been there for, actually it's a little over 25 years. I should probably change that. But I love it. And every time I would get a different job, every time somebody'd say, hey, come join the professional development consultant team for Indiana, I'd say, well, as long as I can keep working at the jail a couple days a week. And then they would say, hey, come do the adult basic ed coordinator program, da, da, da. And I go, well, as long as I can, put those 2 days at the Hamilton County Jail in there. And then somebody'd say, come work and help us transition from the Department of Education, Department of Workforce Development, because our funding switched, and work with our one-stops, which we call work ones, and, help us do that. And da-da-da. I go, well, I bet you can guess what I'm going to say, as long as I can keep teaching at the Hamilton County Jail. And it's because it's my first love of what in adult education, and I love to teach, and I love to take those hard to reach students and get them an attainable goal. So whether it's a level gain, the HSE, going on to post-secondary education, whatever it is, I love being able to do that. So that's a little bit about me. And I'm going to take myself off of video now, but we would love to hear a little bit about you. So Dan, do you want to pull up that first poll for me? Is Dan still there? There we go. So if you're an instructor, in what segment of adult education do you teach? Click all of those that apply, so you can do multiple. So which one of those 4 do you teach? We just would like to know who's on this webinar.
Sorry, I'm on mute, but I will try to stay on mute most of the time, Sara, but I'll leave it on for a moment here so that I can walk through these polls with you.
Okay. So can you tell how many people are
Yeah,
responding?
we're at 60 right now, and it's
Okay.
going, so I'm going to give it just a few more seconds.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to end and share that. Can you see the result?
Oh yeah, look how, yeah. English language learners. We have a lot of those. Adult basic education, adult literacy, high school equivalency. So we've got quite a few are doing a little bit of everything, it looks like, too. Okay.
For poll
Boy,
number
adult
2.
literacy and adult basic education are neck and neck. And look, and English language learning and high school equivalency are both neck and neck. Interesting. Okay, we want to throw up the second one.
Yes, hold on. All right. Poll number 2, here it comes.
So when teaching reading to adults, with what grade level equivalency group do you find you need the most help? So where do you need the most help? What is giving you the most angst or trouble or challenge? Maybe it's a challenge. And GLE is grade level equivalency. So just so you know, I figured everybody knows that, but I thought I'd better throw that out there.
Just a few more seconds.
Okay.
Okay. And here are the results.
Okay. And that is really mostly where people have the most issue. And I should have thought through this a little bit differently, because a lot of times we can get them to that 3rd or 4th grade level, but it's when we go from 4th to 5th to 6th that we have the most difficulty, because we start getting into more that higher level thinking skills, a little bit more what am I trying to say? The inferencing, all of those things come after that 4th, 5th, and it's where you're trying to move them up. And when you look at the level gains on the NRS, look at where those divide up, because that's where we have the hardest time, is getting them from that 4th grade to that 5th grade. So it gets a little bit more difficult around there. So good to know. Okay, I think we have one more, correct?
That's correct.
With which of these components of adult reading instruction do you need the most help? So is it word recognition? So not necessarily vocabulary, but word recognition. They're still having trouble reading. Is it vocabulary? They just don't have enough vocabulary. Comprehension or fluency? And fluency is one we're going to talk a little bit about today. So fluency is I can read fluently, but I can't comprehend, or I can kind of read, but not fluently. So think of the fluency in that sense. Word recognition, vocabulary, comprehension, or fluency. Which of those do you need the most help?
The responses are still coming in, so hang on just a moment.
Okay.
And we're almost at about 85% here of those who voted. So let's see. Oops, the chat just got in the way of my being able to, okay, here we go. I'm going to share those results. Here you are.
Comprehension. Isn't that the truth? And a lot of times the reason why we have a difficult time with comprehension is we really haven't done those first couple steps, or we've got to figure out where they are before we get to comprehension. What is it that's causing that block? So today I'm actually going to focus a lot on comprehension and hopefully give you some skills and some strategies and some lesson activities that you can do. But we're also going to talk a little bit about fluency, because if we don't have fluency, we can't get to comprehension. So I'm going to break that down a little bit for you. So very good. Thanks for letting me get to know you. We have so many people on here. I didn't ask for everybody to unvideo themselves, because I do really miss seeing people, because I'm an extrovert. For anybody that's on here that knows me, Like, this has been a very difficult time because I want to be with people. So let's get started as soon as my mouse warms up. So when we think about what we teach in adult education, a lot of times we focus on math and writing. And why is that? So if we were all together, I would ask you that question, but I'm going to answer the question. Why is that? A lot of times we focus on math and writing because math is concrete, sequential oftentimes too. It's a concrete thing to teach. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Let's throw it up there. Let's do some contextualization. Let's throw in some story problems. We got it. Good. Move on to the next thing. Writing, concrete. I got to do commas. I got to do hyphens. I've got to do ellipses. I've got to do some grammar. I got to teach the writing essay. Concrete, correct? But what happens is we have all these other reading things we have to deal with, correct? But we also have reading in math with the story problems. They've got to be able to understand the vocabulary, context. They've got to be able to read it fluently and comprehend it. And where do we have it in writing? Where do we have it in writing? In the essay. They're reading 2 articles and writing an essay in 45 minutes. At least that's how it is on the task. I believe it is on the other 2 as well. The reading and writing in 45 minutes. We've got reading everywhere. And yet what do? We focus oftentimes on math and writing. And if we do social studies and science, oftentimes it's just the content. Let's talk about World War II. Let's talk about genetics. Let's talk about photosynthesis. But we forget that the core piece is reading. We've got to focus on reading on all of this. It's in everything we do. Should be the first thing we think about and the last thing we think about in our classes as we're beginning and we're leaving. We've got to get better at incorporating that into all of these. So, oh my gosh, this is kind of what happens when we think about reading. It looks like this. I've got social studies, I got science, I've got reading literature, I've got these lower level people, I have higher level people. I've got people now that you're telling me, Sarah, that maybe can't do those first things like fluency, and now I got to worry about comprehension. I've got the TABE, I've got the task or the HiSET or the GED, and it looks like this. What I'm hoping to do in my little hour that I get, is to turn it into this. I want to turn it into where you see a path with a little curve in it, but you know where you're going, and it's pretty, and it's calm, and it's spring or summer, and it's you just want to be there. That's what I want us to do with reading, that we want to be there. We want to enjoy the journey. So where do we begin? Not like this, not with all of these things going all over the place. I don't know if everybody can see my cursor, but not like this. We want to start like this. Let's start at the beginning and work our way through to comprehension. So the first thing we got to do is define reading. And this actually comes from the Partnership for Reading. So I kind of put into bullet points because I'm a visual learner and I needed it broken down for me. So I wanted to say a complex system, reading is a complex system of deriving meaning from print that requires an understanding of how phonemes or speech sounds, speech sounds are connected to print, the ability to decode unfamiliar words, which is our vocabulary, the ability to read fluently, which isn't comprehension, it's just be able to read fluently, and sufficient background information and vocabulary to foster reading comprehension. But here is where we all want to get to. The development of appropriate active strategies to construct meaning from point and the development and maintenance of a motivation to read. I love volunteers that come in and say, I just want to volunteer because I love reading and I want to instill the love of reading into our students. I love it. I love that passion. But does it often work? Not always, because they don't realize, and in the adult learner, there's a lot going on there that we've got to get to and help them through before they can have that motivation and love of reading that a lot of us have. And there's some stuff in the chat window, Dan. I don't know if you're able to see that or not.
I'm responding to things.
Okay, good. Okay, good. So one of the things that I love is this book right here. I'm going to take myself off of video. This book right here. And I have some things tabbed out. The one that I really have, this is my one that I leave here. But the one at the jail is tabbed out completely. And I said to Dan, I really want to show them some of the things, but you really can't see anything. But what I love about this book, I want to talk about in a second, is that it follows this National Institute for Literacy research-based strategies from this website. I really encourage you, and I copied and pasted something earlier, so I can't put it in the chat window right now, but I will later. But I really encourage you to get in here. It's a nice little pamphlet, and it talks about phonemes, vocabulary, fluency, comprehension, and it gives you all these really great understanding of it. But this book follows that, except it exploded it out and gave you all kinds of strategies for each one. It teaches at the very beginning, it talks about specific reading strategies, and it talks about how to deal with that difficult learner, how to deal with different characteristics of a learner, assistive technologies, how to build that rapport and trust with somebody that's literacy and doesn't trust anyone. My guys at the jail don't trust anyone. And if you put someone in that doesn't read very well, that compounds it. It gives you some great strategies on how to build that. It talks about the characteristics of the adult learner and addresses special needs, learning differences, and learning difficulties in that first few chapters of the book. And then after that, it gets into all this other stuff, which is your alphabetics, learning your alphabet, word recognition, fluency, and I'm going to talk about pencil tracing on that one, vocabulary, and then we're going to spend a lot of time on comprehension. So I'm really glad that a lot of you guys mentioned comprehension, but fluency and comprehension are the two that I'm going to focus on in this hour. But I really hope that you look at this book. This is like the Bible of the adult learner, and it's the Bible for reading. It's just excellent. I really hope if you haven't had a chance to look at it, you really do take some time to look at it. Because when I discovered it, I'm like, what? Where has that been all my life? Oh my gosh, it's just excellent. So a couple other things we're going to look at is the language experience approach. It's a one-on-one approach. It's about questions based on their lives so they can pull things and a few follow-up activities with that. And then the other thing we're going to do is the reading comprehension tools. I gotta get rid of this little guy. How do I get rid of that little scream guy? He's not going away. I didn't want to do that. I'm sorry. Reading comprehension tools, the KWL, know, what, learn, and asking the right questions. And I can't see what that bottom one is, so somebody's gonna have to read it to me because my little thing won't go away. How can I get this thing to go away? Maybe I can do this. I'm gonna put it at the top. And the reading skills builder, which is my favorite thing in the whole world, next to this book, of course. So we're going to talk about some of those things today in our hour. Hopefully we can get through everything. I'm also going to do, I threw in at the last minute, close reading, because I really think that's important that we talk about that a little bit. So the first thing I want to talk about, because it's one of the first things in this book before we get into fluency and comprehension, is the language experience approach. I learned this way back when the Laubach series was really what everybody talked about. And I still use the Laubach books. I don't know who's on there that knows about Laubach or remembers Laubach, but I've been around for a long time. So I've been around before WIA, when we had JTPA. And then when we had JTPA, people were still talking about CETA. So if anybody remembers CETA, I came in right after CETA during JTPA time, and people were still talking about that. So I remember the language experience approach from way back then, but it is a proven method and it works. So for those learners that you have those literacy people, and I saw that we had some literacy folks on here. They're teaching literacy. One of the most powerful things you can do is teach the student that what can be spoken can be written. And I have writing down there. Excuse me, I'm a theater major, and sometimes I don't proofread very well. Dan, you didn't catch that on me. But what can be spoken can be written, and what can be written can be read. So what can be spoken can be written down on paper. And once I wrote that on paper, I can read it. So the first thing you're going to do is ask the learner to tell you something. What's your favorite meal? Where do you work? Tell me about your work. Something specific that they can talk about. What's your where do you like to go? What do you like to do in your spare time? Or whatever you want to ask them. Know your student and know what to ask them. Know what's important to them, or what's exciting to them. And then print exactly what the learner says. Print it exactly how they say. Don't correct it. Don't do anything. Print it exactly what the learner says. And then read the text back to the learner exactly how he said it, pointing to every single word as they're watching you do that. Ask the learner to read the text back to you. So you've already, they spoke it to you, one sentence. You wrote it, you read it, and now they're going to read it back to you. And this is to launch their reading, to teach those reading strategies, to get them to understand that what can be spoken can be written, what can be written can be read. It is one of the best ways to help those students really start to get the connection between the spoken word and the written word, and then what we can read. The other reason I like this method is I use this when I have a student who's a little bit beyond this level, but I have a student who I'm trying to get them to write their essay or just to write something, and I can't get it out their head, down their arm, through the pencil, and onto the paper. Out their head, down their arm, through their hand, through the pencil, onto the paper. I can't get them to do it. So I sometimes pair the students up. Sometimes if you're working one-on-one, this is a great one-on-one as well. I will have them read their topic sentence of something that they've just read. Read their topic sentence, have them write the topic sentence down exactly how they said it. So they might ask them a question. And we do things with the scruples thing. So the one that comes to mind is, would you steal for food? Yes or no? And oftentimes they have a yes card. If they have a yes card, they have to answer yes. And they have to say, I would steal for food because, and they have to give me 3 reasons why. So while they're giving the topic sentence, that other person is writing it down verbatim. It's a great way to get those students who have a difficult time getting that essay out of their head and onto the paper to get them started. So you can kind of take this language experience approach and make it bigger. Make it even a bigger project for your little bit higher level learners. Do we have any questions on that, is there any questions in the chat window, Dan?
There's one question I cannot answer, and that is that somebody wanted to know about the partnership for reading that you mentioned.
Right.
What it is. What is it?
I think it's you know what? I grabbed that from Jeff. I would have to look at that, but I think it's just a partnership for reading. I think, I was going to say that COABE is part of them. I'll have to look at that and I will answer that.
Okay. There will be a Q&A that goes out after the webinar. And
yes, because we'll do that afterwards. I'll look at it, but it's part of Education World. It's a collaboration with 3 different agencies, National Institute for Literacy and Human Development, and a couple of others on there. So I'll look at that a little bit further. I'll send you that website. Okay. All right. So these are some prompts that you can use. Tell me about yourself, tell me about your job, tell me about your family, describe this picture. I love to use that one, some fun pictures. If you had 3 wishes, what would they be? And then here's one that I did. This was not my student. This was somebody else's student, but he asked about what he does on his job. And this is what the man said. First, I use a desk mop and mop the floor. Then I use other things. Floor dressing, he knew that was in the light brown container. The disinfectant was in the dark green container. Floor soap was in pink. Wax was in white. Ammonia, clear like water, and blue mist. He didn't know, he couldn't read those things because he was truly a literacy student, but he was able to see when Jeff was able to do this, and he did this with his student. He wrote this down and he was like, oh, and then he said, I should probably learn the names of those things, the floor dressing, that's disinfectant. It took him to another level. He was so excited that he could probably read later on. So he brought those to Jeff later and they worked on that. But this is what he wrote. And then this said, and this is what exactly we wrote down. So you write exactly what they say. Language experience approach. It's one of the best things you could do if you have a literacy student. So let's go into fluency because it's already 1:27. So fluency refers to reading speed, ease and comfort, and expressiveness. That's what fluency is. Doesn't mean they can comprehend, but they can read fluently. I can read all that. I can read with ease. I can express it, but I'm not necessarily remembering or comprehending what I've read. Fluency. If they don't have fluency, you cannot get them to comprehension. We cannot get them to comprehension. We've got to focus on that fluency and get them into those reading speeds. And here's some of the ways you can do that. Reading aloud, where the learner listens as the tutor reads. And you have all these examples in that book of activities that you can use with them. Duet reading is tutor and learner read together, one of my favorite things. And then echo reading is tutor reads and learner repeats. Don't confuse that with duet reading. So duet reading is we're trying to keep up the same speed. I'm trying to push them along a little bit. And then echo reading is tutor reads and then the learner repeats what I read. Alternative reading, the tutor and learner read alternate sentences or paragraphs. And then phrasing with pencil tracking, one of my favorite things to do. Tutor models activity and learner reads phrases aloud while using a pencil to connect the words in a phrase. And it looks like this. So you would first do, Scott went to the store to buy a new pair of shoes. And what I like about this is that you can make this into an English lesson on prepositional phrases or subject verb, just some basic things. And then you have Scott went, there's your sentence, to the store to buy a new pair of shoes. And then it gets more. Scott went to the store to buy a new pair of shoes. And then they read it all together. Scott went to the store to buy a new pair of shoes. If we had more time, I would love to practice this, but do take a look at that. Try it. If you just have one sentence and then you have them just break it apart, and it doesn't really matter so much where they break it apart, but you do want to get them used to looking at those subject, verbs, prepositional phrases, and then they can start breaking them down that way. And then they can start really kind of chunking. Remember chunking? We always talked about chunking. They can start doing it and get more fluent. It's a great activity. It's a great way to get them to use their finger or use a pencil and actually help them focus on those words. It's another way to do that. Comprehension, our all-time favorite. So comprehension is recognizing, understanding, react and respond to something, and apply it. But keep in mind, just because I can recognize something does not mean I actually understand it. So recognizing does not equal understanding. I always love to say that, especially in math too. Knowledge does not equal understanding. Just because I have the knowledge to do something doesn't mean I really understand how to do it. Same way here. Recognizing does not equal understanding. So this is my reading skills builder. I don't know if anybody has seen me do this before, but I will always do it. I will continue to do it. If you're going to talk about reading, this is it. And remember that highway that we saw earlier? It was like all over the place and I can't figure out where to begin. This is your path. This is your beautiful path with the trees and the green and the summer and all of that. We're going to look at this and we're going to actually do something here in a minute, but you're going to list 10 facts you know about the subject. So you would put up on the board, even if you're doing math, even if you're doing writing, math, what do you know about integers? You know, you could do it with that, but if we're doing reading here, what do you know about genetics? What do you know about westward expansion, which is one of my favorite ones because I get all kinds of good answers. What do you know about how because it'll be photosynthesis, but how plants grow? What do you know? How do you know about how plants grow? Because then I'm going to move them into photosynthesis. That's one of my favorite ones too. So you're going to list 10 facts you know about the subject. And then you're going to have them define all terms. You're going to give them like a little article. And Journey to Success has these wonderful little articles in there you can do, like the Columbia Exchange and March on Washington, the short history of blue jeans. So you can do, there's little articles. Here I go again. There's just little articles in the Journey to Success. You can have them read those articles and there's questions afterwards. So in the article, they would want to define all the terms. And then you would go through and read all captions, charts, maps, and graphs, and you'd be amazed at how much they can answer the questions by just doing this. And then you're going to answer the questions at the end of the have I read yet? Oh my gosh, have I even read yet? I haven't even read yet because I'm doing number 5. I'm finally reading the passage. And then number 6, I'm going to go back and re-answer my questions and change my answers. How many of you always say to your students, so I need you to read the questions first and then go back and read the article and then answer the questions. We all do it and it's okay. It's a great method on the test. But this is the game. This is the practice. This is the practice for the game. We got to practice these 6 steps over and over and over again in order to get their brain focused, their brain on track, their brain booted up, ready to go so that on game day, they can read those questions, read the article, answer those questions, boom, I'm done. And they have the confidence to do it. I love this. I usually use this as a learning station if I have multiple levels because I can do list 10 facts all together. So I can do a list 10 facts about what do you know about how things grow. And I can have everybody do that. And then I can break them up into if Journeys to Success is your go-to book or you have another go-to book. You can, or you print things off from Ducksters.com, although Ducksters.com is not all it's not a high enough level for some of us, but you got to be careful about what you got there. But Ducksters.com, I have that in my resources down there. It's going to be a good access for you or resource for you. But if you do the Journey to Success, then you've got 3 different levels right there. Put them into 3 different levels. Oftentimes they have similar reading things in there that you can read. So you can read different levels about how things grow. But start with list 10 facts. Now everybody go define your own terms in your thing, read the caption, maps, and charts, answer all the questions in the passage, read the passage. Go back and read the answers and questions and change any answers. So when you do that, then you'll actually see that if there's 5 questions, they only changed maybe 2. And then they start to get this confidence going on. It's a great activity. We're going to practice it. So did everybody pull up their Slido.com? So if you didn't, join us at Slido.com and you're going to punch in this number, that 55710. So you're going to pull up Slido.com and it's going to tell you exactly where, I think, right, Dan, it says just to go right there.
Yes, I just went there.
Pull it up.
And it says right on my phone, let's work together to list 10 or more things you know about World War II.
So it should have you to enter a code, correct? So you're going to enter that code.
Yes, you have to.
And then, so you guys are going to enter that code, and then we're going to work together and list 10 or more things you know about World War II. And it can be a movie. I love doing fun things. I do kind of crazy things. So I love somebody. Thank you. Whoever's first, Battle of the Bulge. Yay. Good job. Anything. It can be a movie. Saving Private Ryan. Thank you. The American military did not enter until after Pearl Harbor. Exactly. We fought against Nazis. Death. Schindler's List. The Tuskegee Airmen. Yay. Good. Japanese expansion. Oh my gosh, you guys are so good. Kelly's Heroes. Eastern Front. Look, these are just flying up here. Oh, your dad was in World War I? Oh my gosh. It was after World War I. I love that you said that. Wind Talkers. I love the Wind Talkers. And there's an awesome article about them on Ducksters, I think. The Allies won. That's a great one because then we could talk about the Allies and the Axis versus Allies. That's great. Winston Churchill. Bombing of Rotterdam. Oh my goodness, who said that? Germany recovering from World War I. Yes, and actually that's important that we cover that. And we also cover economics after World War II, because that is really big, whether you're on the task or GED or high set, they oftentimes talk about economics. And so like who was in the most economic difficulties after World War II or something like that. So it's important we talk about the economics between World War I, World War II, and afterward going into the Cold War. Look at this. I love this. I'm so excited about Slido.com now. Diary of Anne Frank. Good. That was a good one. Yay. Bombing of Pearl Harbor. London blackouts. That's a great one. I'm trying to read these as fast as they're coming up. My uncles and father were in service. See, and that's appropriate. If somebody says my dad was in World War I, it was that somebody was in war. That's a perfect answer. Allow it. Nothing is nothing. You can't have a wrong answer. Ooh, we have an overachiever here. Hitler, concentration camps, atomic bomb. I love talking about the atomic bomb in the Cold War. Churchill, Roosevelt, Stalin, Dunkirk. Good job. Life is Beautiful. Love that movie. Japanese camps in U.S. after war. Yes, that's a good one. The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. Eisenhower. One uncle died after the Pacific, and his name is on the memorial in Hawaii. Oh my goodness, wasn't that cool? Rationing. All right. So while you guys keep pulling up, I'm going to talk about this for a minute. So when somebody answers those 10 questions, I always try to not make it a wrong answer. So I always want to make sure that everybody is validated with kind of pushing him into, okay, but let's think more World War II, or, that's great, but let's kind of get more in. They can always find something. They will find, even if it just says war, people died, concentration camps, it's just things they know. It's just about booting their brain up. Boot your brain up. That's all it is. So when they get on that test, or they get in real life and they're reading their work manual, because that's a great contextualizing way of doing this, contextualizing that lesson, is they're reading the work manual and they're going, okay, what do I already know about whatever it is that I'm reading? Boot their brain. It'll start to happen automatically.
Sarah, we have a question.
Yeah.
The question is, what was the reference? Duckers.com?
It's ducksters.com. And I believe it's in one of my resource pages at the end. It's DUCKSTERS, Ducksters, DUCKSTERS.com. Ducksters.com. It's got every article you could possibly wonder for social studies. And I can't remember if it is science. Now I pull most for social studies. And but it's got everything you could possibly want. Now, I did a little thing on the, like you can copy and paste it into this read thing. And it said it was 9th grade reading level, but a lot of their questions were only level 1 Webstep Knowledge, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. And I wasn't real happy with that. So I had to supplement it with other resources. So just keep that in mind. Okay, I'm going to keep moving because we got a lot to go and I got 20 minutes. I don't know how many of you are comfortable or know Webstep Knowledge, but here it is. I love it. I use it. I have these hung up in I have to put them in my filing cabinets because I can't have anything on the wall, but I'd like to get them like laminated so I can put them up there and then take them down. I mean, it'd be awesome, but look at the difference. Level 1 is just recalling facts. I can find it. I can point to it in the article. Not good enough, guys. Not good enough. We got to get them to a level 2. Skills and concepts, and a level 3 strategic thinking. So your level 2 is categorize, cause and effect, compare, summarize, interpret. Your level 3 is cite evidence, conclude, develop a logical argument. See how they're getting you to think more? I'm thinking more. Look at your level 3 question stems over here to the right. Let's look down in the middle. Can you predict the outcome if something else happened? How would you describe the sequence of something? Can you elaborate on the reason why we won because of dropping the bombs? I mean, whatever, but look at those level 3 and then look at level 2 questions. Can you explain how blank affected blank? Can you explain how dropping the atomic bomb affected the end of the war? Can you explain that? How would you apply what you learned to develop something? How would you compare and contrast? See how they're kind of still in a level 2 thinking, but you pulled them into a level 3 thinking because they got to think harder and more. And then level 4 is controversial to me because a lot of people say, oh, we could do level 4, but I was always taught that level 4 was over a period of time and it was more like a dissertation kind of thing. But you guys can interpret it how you want, but it is an extended period of thinking. It's a lot more complex. I focus on level 2 and 3 because I know that's going to make them successful out in the world. It's not just about passing the test anymore. It's about going on to college or some type of trade. It's going on to getting a job where you might be a manager. So think of those because I'm going to give you a quiz right now. So what keywords would you use to start level 2 question? If you got a phone, you better start digging up the Webstep Knowledge on there. I didn't embed it anywhere. So what keywords would be used to start a level 2 question? And if you go under images, under Webstep Knowledge, it's the one thing I had on the left is right there. So categorize, yes. Can you recall? Why? I love that. Why? So you did da 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 da. Why? Why did you say that? Why, where, how, who, and how? Compare and contrast. Why would the Nazis have chocolate? Who is this overachiever on here? I love it. Compare and classify, predict the outcome. I love it. Guys are good. Okay, for the sake of time, I'm going to push you guys on a little bit. What is the reason for? Look at you guys. These guys already know Webstep Knowledge. I hope you're using it. I hope you're using it. Can they keep adding on there, Dan? If I move on?
Well, yes, they can. Yeah, we left it active.
Okay. All right, I'm going to keep moving because we've only got a little bit time left. So keep in mind, and I know you guys have probably seen this before, that I can have a verb like describe, but I have 3 different levels. Describe 3 characteristics of metamorphic rocks. Describe the difference between metamorphic and igneous rocks. After 5 years, I can finally say that word. Describe a model that you might use to represent the relationships that exist within the rock cycle. I like that one. So actually, I was thinking we talk about the cycles a lot, and so I have to remember to kind of use that when I'm asking those questions. So look at those 3, describe 3 characteristics, describe the difference, and describe a model that you might use. Okay? I know I'm going fast, but I have a feeling you guys know this stuff because we're going to ask you now a level 3 question. What constitutes a question or problem, could be a problem, to be a Webstep Knowledge level 3? Let's blow up the screen. I had a lot more to do. See, level 3 is a little harder, isn't it? Differentiation. Okay. Beats me. my day. Okay, you're going to go to Webstep Knowledge on the internet and pull up that little thing I have on there. Compared to another, strategic thinking. I'm checking to make sure you guys are right. Please explain why the rising sea levels represent climate change. Ugh, I love it. Applying what has been learned. How might you do something? Personal reaction, interaction with subject. Yeah, hypothesize. Good. How would you sequence? Da, 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 da. I love it. I really, really, really recommend that you pull up those two charts, and all you have to do is Google Webstep the Knowledge, and that one on the left will come up, Webstep the Knowledge question stems, and the other one will come up. And go under images, and it'll come up. You guys were awesome, and I absolutely love this Slido. So I'm going to go through this real quick because I want to get to one other thing before we do question and answers. But you guys know the KWL. The reason I brought this one up is because there's some awesome examples, and you know what I'm going to say in this book. And I can't tell you how much I love this book, but there's some great, I was never really a good KWL person, you know, what I know, what I want to find out, what I learned or still learn. But because I started using more flip chart paper in my classroom, because I'm all about active learning and I get them up around the room, I found some really cool activities in here that I can use. And now I use that a little bit more. And I really like it because it really is, as a whole group, I want to ask them, what do you know? What do you know about the subject? Which is very similar to top 10 things, right? So we're kind of merging these a little bit together. What do you want to find out? And what do I still want to learn? I'm kind of slacking a little bit on the what I want to learn thing, but isn't that more of a level 3? Don't we need to get to that level 3? So I really want to encourage you to do that. I use flip chart paper. Oh, look, they will curve the flip chart paper because that's who I am. I own stock in it. I'm sure I do, or I should. Let this warm up. Oh, Webstep Knowledge is part of what I do with have a few questions ready or on the board for them to answer, because that's what you need to do. You've got to incorporate that because they got to be able to transfer what we're teaching them to the test or to real life, contextualizing your lessons. So I got to move this thing down. Reading ready, multi-level multiple. Oh, so I'm thinking about what I was doing here. So I don't know if I really want to spend time doing this one because it's a little bit more in depth. But so one of the things that I do for my reading when we have multi-levels, especially, you see that I've got level 1, 2, 3, 4 on there. But I will have an article like from Ducksters or from the Journey to Success or from wherever else you want to get it from. And I have them read the article and write down at least 5 facts that seem interesting. Read it and just find 5 facts that seem interesting. That is a level 1. They're just picking it out. In 2 sentences or less, summarize the article. Do you know how hard it is to summarize something in 15 words or less? 15 words or less. And sometimes that's what they ask you to do. But I give them a little bit of break. 2 sentences or less, summarize the article. Be sure to reference the central idea. Don't summarize 2 sentences for me. I want you to summarize the whole article. In your own words, write down what the pictures are telling the reader. The pictures. What are the pictures telling you? Write something that will capture someone's attention. So give me something as why I should read this article and what is the purpose of this article? Why do I need to know this? Why does somebody need to know this? And if the article references time, create a timeline to tell the story. Create a timeline to tell the story. So now you got a level 3 and maybe a level 4, but I'm not into that level 4 because I believe it's over a period of time. I do this on flip chart paper. I sometimes will use Journey to Success. I sometimes will use these, I don't have them handy, but they're these fiction cards that I had that I bought a long time ago from EduPress. So if you have those, or if you can find them because they're hardly in print anymore and they were the best things ever, you can use them with these. You can use them with the Ducksters article. Get them up and moving. Do this with flip chart paper, and you can do this with multi-level. So here's a multi-level activity for your readers that you can do with anybody, get them moving around, pair them up, however you want to do it, but get them up and moving. And here you've got level 1, 2, 3, and maybe a 4, but I'm not really into that 4. Okay. Okay. Yeah. And this is what I did. I wanted to show you my timeline activity because I want to try to give you as many activities as I could today in my hour. So what I did is that yep, there you go. So we do, I do the Revolutionary War, I do the Civil War. I love history, and I love that timeline of the Revolutionary War to the Civil War to the Cold War. I love that timeline. So we talked about all of it over a period of time. And I have these, and now I have these laminated, but I made up all these different cards, and then note to self, if you have somebody that has a laminator, laminate them because they end up getting messed up after a while. And then they're just there. But then I put this big timeline, 1700, 1960 on the board. And then I had them, oh, I still have more on there. Do this. There's my students with permission, but you can't really see their faces. So that's good. So here's their timeline. This is when I were not laminated. And they had to put all of these things up on a timeline. But then not only did they have to do the timeline, but they actually had to go through, and whoever had whatever cards they had, whatever stickies they had to actually talk about it. So they had to stand up next to their little sticky notes, and they had to explain what was going on in history. It was speaking. It was a good level 3 for them to kind of process and put it wherever they did. I would ask them questions, like we just came up with what would have happened if Abraham Lincoln had not gotten shot? What would have happened if we hadn't joined World War II? So I asked a lot of those questions, and I had them ready. You have to have them ready, because as much as you think you'll remember them off the top of your head, you won't, because I can't remember mine right now. But you ask those questions. I have tons of pictures like this. They love this activity, and you can do it with a smaller group. I was a smaller amount of sticky notes. I was just trying to do almost like a review with them. I want to do a review with them. And then after that, then we sat down and we actually did some problems in a book that had actual like HSE, high school equivalency questions in it that sounded more like questions. And it was amazing how much their brain was processing. I love this activity. I wanted to share it with you because it's one of my favorite things to do with reading. Have them read those last two. I'm going to back up because I want to make sure you see this one and you'll get this. I love this activity. It's one between the reading skills builder, this one, the timeline, and you can put whatever kind of things up there you want. And then actually, I'm going to show you one other. You can, because I know we're running out of time, and I want to show you one other thing. I want to talk about this because they're going to get this. You're going to get this PowerPoint, so you can go and read Roadblocks, because it talks in here about roadblocks to comprehension, roadblocks to reading. What are those roadblocks? And I really hope you take some time to do that. But I want to talk about the difference between close reading versus purposeful reading. Purposeful reading, as we all know, is I'm reading for a purpose. So I'm reading because I'm trying to find the answer. I'm reading because I've got to do this to do the tape test. I'm reading for a purpose. I'm reading because I want to read this book. But close reading is really about getting them to look closely at the material. And here's your steps. And I love this activity. I can do it with the Gettysburg Address, which is wonderful. And they're like, I had no idea that's what it was about. They had no idea that's what it was about. Or you can use it with any of the Journey to Success. You can use it with any of your favorite books that you read, Dexters.com. You can read with any of those. But look at it. Step one, you go through, read it, just read it. Highlight the important parts that you think are important, and then talk, what is this text about? I don't know. Read it a second time, more closely. Circle the parts you don't understand. Mark any vocabulary words where you're not sure about. What is going on here? Explain the marks that you made. Why did the author even write this? Start looking at it closer. The third time, Look at the questions if there's questions on it. Reread to find their answers. Write your answers. The third time when I did Gettysburg Address, we read through it a third time just for the overall meaning. And afterwards, the guys went, oh my gosh, I had no idea that's what it was about. Powerful, powerful. I hope you take a look. If you're not doing close reading, I hope you use it as a warm-up activity or a closing activity. Somehow incorporate this as maybe a weekly or every other day or something into your classroom. Here's your resources. Here's that Ducksters. And I know a lot of you do teachers pay teachers. This is that readable.com. You can cut and paste a section of something that you're reading and cut it and paste it into this section, this piece in the readable. You'll see it on the website. You can cut and paste in this little place there, and then it'll say, oh, it's a level, it's a 5th grade reading level, or yeah, this is a 12th grade reading level. You can only do so many a day for free. So it's awesome. I love it. It's very good, and I use it quite a bit. I also like the Eyewitness to History. That's got some great articles on it. And then if you do literacynet.org science links, because if you're doing science, there's some really awesome articles. There's a science picture of the day. Oh, I love it. And you can have them research after you do the science picture of day, like sonic boom. Let them go research what the sonic boom is. So many fun things there. So there's some good resources there. So I hope, because I want to take some time for questions, but I hope that we have gone from here to here in a marathon mode. I know, so don't critique me on how fast I spoke, because I know that, but I really wanted to get all of those in, but I hope we were able to do that. I want to end with this. You know, the greatest danger facing us is ourselves and the irrational fear of the unknown. There's no such thing as the unknown, only things temporarily hidden, temporarily not understood. Captain Kirk, who knows everything. I learned everything from Star Trek. I love it. But isn't that a powerful quote? Our students have a fear of math. They have a fear of reading. They have a fear of tests because it's hidden to them. But if we can unlock that for them, it's no longer misunderstood. They don't have that fear anymore because we've unlocked that for them. Let's unlock